The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Oshkosh Media, the City of Oshkosh, or your video service provider.
Hello, this is Edward casting for another edition of Making It Happen. Tonight, again, I have Liz Last and I have Tom Simon
Yes. Mm-hmm.
for Habitat for Humanity. Thanks for joining me
Well, thank you.
on a very cold night.
It
Yes.
is very cold.
Yes.
So, Liz, what got you interested in working for Habitat? Or you probably heard of Habitat before, so what got you interested in really working for them, understanding their mission and so on?
Well, I initially got really excited about Habitat for Humanity when I heard about this Rock the Block program.
Okay.
That's new to Oshkosh. There was a position posted for a Rock the Block program coordinator. That's when I applied for the job and met Tom, heard about all of the amazing housing opportunities that are available for qualified families in Oshkosh and learned more about Rock the Block, and I definitely wanted to get on board and help out in any way that I could.
And Tom?
Sure. I mean, I got involved in Habitat because Habitat's one of those few places where you really are still bringing everybody together.
Yeah.
I mean, right now in society, we're all
Right now we're divided as a country.
Yeah, and see, I've done things like interfaith bills, women's bills, political bills, bringing people that are all from different aspects together. Because when you're working with a hammer, when you're having to rely on somebody to hold the wall while you're building it.
You don't really know how important it is until you work together as a team to accomplish it, right?
Exactly. Then there can't be any differences when we have to do it together.
Whether they're white, black, whatever color or race they're from or whatever.
You got it. And
You
Habitat's one of those. Our mission is to bring people together to build houses, communities, and hope.
Okay.
And it's really something different because there's very few things where you can come together, you work, you put in a window, you put up a wall. But when you step back, you see what you've accomplished. And whenever you go by it, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And no one can ever take it away from you.
Mm-hmm.
38 homes in Oshkosh have been built by Habitat.
Now, when was Habitat, I don't know if either one of you want to answer this, but when was it founded here in Oshkosh?
I'll take that one. It was founded in October of 1989. Group of church volunteers, and they've built it. They helped found Habitat affiliates all around this region.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Fox Cities Habitat was founded by Oshkosh. Fond du Lac Habitat was founded by Oshkosh. Green Lake Habitat was founded by Oshkosh. There was always a spirit of the volunteers here reaching out to others.
That's something. 38 homes. And I think I seen on the website over 4,000 some hours and over 144,000 hours by volunteers. That's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. For each home, it averages over 100 volunteers per home. So it really takes that community building to put the homes up and make that happen.
So Liz, how long have you been working for Habitat now?
I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary. So I started last winter, just before Christmas. I have been able to see the entire homebuyer program process from application to completion. We just closed on a home just last month, and it was really exciting to see the entire process and get to work with that family from start to finish and beyond.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you guys probably get pretty close with the families because because they apply and then because somebody told me when I first wanted to do the show, oh, you have to be married in order to qualify. But then I looked at the website, no, you don't have to be married, because a lot of people were telling me, oh, you have to be married. That's not the case.
Nope, that's
No.
not the
So
case.
it's a misconception that a lot of people get, because a lot of people were telling me you have to be married. I'm like, no, you don't, because it can be single, it can be for other circumstances as well. So
Sure. Habitat is actually an equal opportunity housing program, so we do not discriminate based on any protected classes of discrimination. We do have some eligibility criteria that we do factor in with each applicant, but we work with people from all backgrounds, all religions, all races, marital status, things like that.
And it's a Christian-based organization, correct?
Yes, it's an ecumenical ministry. We're not identified with any religion,
Okay.
but we do work strongly. This is a ministry, not just a
Yes.
program.
Yes.
So, in our mission statement, starts with showing God's love in action. It's got the twofold part of this mission. The first is, as Liz has talked about, building with the families. And the other part of the mission is getting people working with the families. As you said, these families, we just had a homeowner, 100-some people worked with her.
Okay.
I think between Liz, staff, everyone, she's got 100 new best friends.
Yeah, and some of those friends will be long-lasting ones, and some will be, they will always be linked to her. Because they will help, they not just to her but to her family. Because and you never can say enough thanks.
Yes. And if I could tell you this, is that, across Oshkosh, I drove by a home here. I was looking at something with a homeowner from years ago. But that home is a symbol. That home is a symbol of 100-some people came together with that homeowner. It's always there. You drive by, you have volunteers years later who say, well, that was my home, the home that I helped build. There's an ownership of it. There's an ownership not just of the family that's there, but of the community.
So in a sense, the community owns the home because the community helped build it, right?
It's unique, and Liz can talk about what a family goes through.
Yeah.
But I think that what happens is when you have the physical ability, when you take that hammer and you put it into that nail, suddenly something is different.
Yes.
You've taken parts that were apart and put them together. And that's, if you listen to us again and again, that's what we're doing. We're building something.
Yeah, because it not only changes their world, but your world, and maybe the way you look at it. Because maybe before you start helping build it, maybe you looked at life a little differently.
Sure.
So, Liz, do you want to take me through the process of what people got to do to apply? And
Sure. So some of the application criteria have to do with someone's ability to pay a monthly mortgage payment. So one of the biggest misconceptions about Habitat Housing is that we give houses away for free, which is not true.
Nope.
So we do take in applications. Applicants do need to fall within certain income criteria. We look at a variety of different sources of income. Generally speaking, it's usually income from employment, but we do look at income from other areas, whether it be disability or self-employment or other sources.
Yeah.
They have to be able to pay an affordable mortgage. We never charge more than 30% of an applicant's income toward their monthly mortgage payment. We help offset the costs through some of our programming to make that mortgage payment affordable. We also look at their need for adequate housing. So if someone is applying for Habitat Housing, we want to be able to improve their current living situation. So if they're currently living in a rental unit that is just unaffordable, or there are structural concerns, there's damage, whether it be from water or some sort of disaster, things like that are all factors that we consider for their need for housing, which could determine who would be the next partner family that we work with based on their need. We also look at their willingness to partner with our agency. So as Tom mentioned before, the partner families actually help build their own home. So each able...
So you work with different organizations around Oshkosh?
We
Yes,
do.
yes.
We do. And the partner families put in what we call sweat equity. So they work with a lot of different individual volunteers and volunteer groups.
What's a
to
sweat
actually-
equity?
Sweat equity is their volunteer time that
Okay.
they put in toward the build of their home.
Okay.
And each partner family applicant participant that's able to, we do require 250 hours of sweat equity toward the build of their home. A lot of applicants or participants actually put those sweat equity hours on the build site. So they're actually swinging the hammer and they're putting
Right.
up the walls, they're putting up insulation, things like that. Other applicants or participants are actually putting some of those hours into our restore. So we find a variety of different volunteer opportunities, and those hours are counted towards sweat equity, which helps them purchase their home.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which makes them feel good too.
Right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, you don't value what you don't earn.
No.
See, what Liz is talking about in all these things too, and the one other thing is there's no interest. It's done 0% interest. So every dollar that they're paying back towards that house is going towards the ownership of that house.
Wow.
And what we're really doing is, if you listen to this, is so many of the families, especially Liz will be working with them. She worked through with Kara from the very beginning to the end. And the next family is just coming in. And what you see is a change. A change because during that time period, you did a major project. You took a piece of dirt and you turned it into a home.
Yes.
We didn't expect you to do this alone, but we expected you to be part of a process.
Yes.
And you represent everyone who's come before you and who will come after you.
Mm-hmm.
The volunteers want to work with the family. They want to work with the people. And for the family member, when you help put in the wall, when you help paint it, you get a totally different feeling about the house because you built it. It's your home.
It only makes logical sense. So, because if you didn't build it,
Whatever you are given,
yeah.
you don't value as much
No.
as when you earn it.
Or when you go through a circumstance.
hmm
Yeah. So,
Well, it teaches you that you can overcome,
yes.
that you can do projects you never thought you could. I mean, across the world, there's a Habitat home built every 4 minutes.
I even know of a family that I have a caregiver right now that they live, without mentioning names, they live in a duplex, and one side's completely handicap accessible and the other side has another family, and they're so thankful because I see this caregiver every day because it's the caregiver's grandma, and I see this caregiver every day, and they're so thankful for her daughter was provided the home for their family. They're so thankful that they have that home now, because without it, they weren't able to. Their living situation, having somebody with a disability, wasn't easy. So they're very thankful because now he has a playroom to play in and fully accessible shower. So it's things like that people take for granted,
And
So-
we build the homes to meet the family's needs. So
Yes.
if there are accessibility issues, those are things that we can factor in.
Yes.
We make sure that they have enough bedrooms for the children that are living in the home and enough bathrooms, depending on what their needs are. All of our homes are simple, decent, affordable. So we definitely build them to meet the family's needs.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk a little bit about I think was it Rock the Blocks program or?
Sure.
Sure.
So I manage both programs, our housing program and Rock the Block. Rock the Block is a little bit different because we're not actually building homes from the ground up, but we are revitalizing neighborhoods by providing exterior home repairs. So Rock the Block in Oshkosh is pretty unique to the community because we are working in collaboration with some other agencies. We work with Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods in the city of Oshkosh to pull together resources and connections to identify established neighborhood associations that want this type of revitalization. And we go door to door. We talk to people in the neighborhood about what their needs are for exterior home repairs and improvements. And we are working with a grant through the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation to provide a wealth of services to people in these neighborhoods for free. The grant covers almost all of the costs of that. Anything that the grant would not cover, like a big project, we might be able to refer to the city grant and loan programs to offset some of the costs of those bigger projects.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, is that, Liz she's the program manager. I mean, if I would simply say this, is that in a neighborhood where things are going right, people know each other and they're working towards a neighborhood improvement. Liz just gave you all the spots. I was one of those people that she had volunteered. I went door to door. I would knock on your door. I would tell you I'd be wearing the Habitat shirt. The first thing we've got to do is get people trusting each other, getting to know each other.
That's why they say it's important to know your neighbor, because you never know when you're going to need them.
There's so much research that just shows you'll be healthier, the neighborhood will be safer. It's just in neighborhoods where things are not going the way we'd like them to go, it's often we just go into isolation. We start splitting away from each other. That's why this program exists, and Liz is doing a great job with it. But you've got to get people talking to each other. You've got to get people working together. Honestly, Rock the Block at the end of the day is neighbor helping neighbor.
Yeah.
That was one of the most exciting things that we got to see in our first Rock the Block project is a lot of the neighbors outside helping each other with some of their own projects. We provided a lot of the volunteer labor and the supplies, but they were actually outside getting to know one another and working alongside of each other, sitting down to have lunch with one another. And it was really cool to see a lot of those social connections happening.
Because some of those people might be sheltered and, that might be the first time talking to someone.
Actually, that happened. And to tell you the truth, where Habitat steps in is we often are just introducing the people to each other. We're the people, we're experienced with this. Liz could run a huge project. But what it took then is for all the people to come to work through that project that she organized. I went on a bus going around the neighborhood. Just why I jumped in is because there was an older gentleman we were working on his house. And I was asked if I would talk to him because, yes, I talk a lot. And they wanted to just listen because he wasn't saying anything. So I got off the bus and there was a group of volunteers taking down an old rotted wheelchair ramp. But the gentleman, as I started to talk to him, turns out he had worked for my father for 38 years.
Wow.
They had been friends.
And you didn't even know this?
No, he asked me if I was Tom Simon, if I knew a person named Jim. It turned out he had been my dad's mentor.
Wow.
When people were watching and talking, as Liz said, I noticed that this group of people started hanging around us while we were talking. They were the gentleman's neighbors. They didn't know his name because they really never had a chance to talk to him.
But now they know his name.
Yes, he's Wayne. Everybody now knows Wayne.
Okay.
And that's what Liz is really driving, the Rock the Block program. We each have names. We each own a home. When you put us together, we're a neighborhood.
I can see how it personally touched you, too.
My dad called him. They hadn't talked for 15 years.
Why hadn't they talked, did he say?
Well, I think part of the brown world, and that's the role of Habitat, is when do we ever get together anymore? When do you have that chance?
But, it just takes a few minutes to pick up a phone, or it takes a few minutes to talk to somebody, or see how they're doing. How is your day? That's, and people... That's what people need. People need people to listen to people.
Or to hear that Habitat's going to be picking out, working yard work in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Would you volunteer for a day?
Yeah.
What we're seeing is the people come out onto the streets, the homeowners work with us. You get people walking by. Liz will organize these volunteer teams, and I notice people walking their dog will stop by the house then and start talking to the person. I notice the blue shirts that they wear. You look up and down the street and you see this movement, everybody working together. It makes you want to get out. It makes you want to be part of this. That's what Habitat's trying to do. Get us all together, work together.
And like I said, we're so divided right now as a country, so.
We need Habitat.
Yes. Do you guys want to share any without mentioning any names because of privacy? Do you want to share any cool stories?
Do you have any cool stories,
You
Tom?
want to go first?
You go ahead.
Well, I mean, I've done this, Liz has been a year now. I've done this for 8-9 years now. And I will say the coolest stories are when somebody that would otherwise be forgotten is remembered. I've worked with a lot of people where they've donated land, they've donated an old house, and we fixed it up for a family. But when a family goes in, and think when you go into your home when you first got it, you don't know that there's a story there of the person that came before you. And I heard once of a gentleman who had died of cancer. It was horrid. He had never had a chance to have a family and children. Well, he donated his house, and we fixed it up, and the family that had it had small kids. So I brought the man's sister there. And I said, this is the family he never had.
Yeah.
He did
So
succeed.
he still had a family,
You got it.
even though he wasn't physically there to see it, but he still had a family.
His sister cried and hugged them.
So, now, Tom, let me take you back here now, because you said you've been working for 8-9 years. That first house you were working on, how did it make you feel personally after volunteering on that first house?
Well, I can tell mine, then Liz can tell hers. part of the world of Habitat is we get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do.
That make you feel uncomfortable.
Yes, I'll tell you a business, and then she can verify whether it's this way. You show up at the build site, you're terrified. You volunteered, you want to help, but we're going to do siding. How do you do it? I always watch it. We have a great construction guy. His name's Rob. And what he will do is he'll bring them all together. And you're going to watch Rob at first. And then you notice a group that's afraid to try to do something. And somebody steps forward. And everybody watches that one person. Then they all got to go off by their own and try to do it themselves. But you'd be shocked. Within 15 minutes to 30 minutes, they're working as a team. That's part of Habitat. That's part of my first day. I can do siding now. I would have never dreamed to try it. And Liz, what did you do? So,
And you know what? Before we go into Liz, I think it helps build confidence too.
Mm-hmm.
that's part of our world, that we're trying to teach you that if you work together, if you try something new.
Anything's possible.
Right.
Exactly.
I think a lot of our home buyers too are really intimidated by the process, but then once they actually see what they're capable of doing, they're really proud of the skills that they learned.
Well, some people don't even like filling out a long application.
Right. I've tried to shorten the application actually. I whittled it down to a couple pages so it's a little less intimidating. When I first started just over a year ago, I felt like the application process was pretty daunting. So I did try to get that application process down to a couple pages so
Okay.
they can just easily pick up the phone or email me and ask me questions and I can kind of walk them through that shorter application process. But to answer Tom's question about my experience on a build site, I spent a day caulking on this last house that we built, and now every time I drive by the house, I think of that day that I was like covered head to toe in caulk, but I was really proud of what I did. And
Did you know how to caulk previously?
Not really. I had a general idea of what I needed to do, but by the end of the job, I had it down pretty well.
Tom, do you almost feel like your own carpenter after you get done building a home? Cause
I think you
know,
can learn.
you
You
know.
can learn. I think we get a lot of people that volunteer to learn to do something. I mean, what you find in life is that things really aren't that hard, but we're afraid of failure. And what I think Habitat and building a house does, it is a simple process. But when you put all these people together, there's been many studies shown that Habitat houses have done really well in a disaster. And here's why, if I could say quickly. Because every volunteer is so careful on the piece of work they do.
Well,
You know,
because they want to make sure it's good quality,
yes,
and they don't want to screw up.
exactly.
But it's okay if they screw up.
You got it. And then what we learn is we can build something that's really great, that will last for years. And yes, you can screw up. But if you work at it, if you work hard, you can do it.
And your first attempt might not be good, but you don't give up on it.
Yes, Rob has to be the most patient person in the world. Because the first time you do it, and when you first did caulking, it's a very interesting experience. But then we have to be those people that are welcoming to you, welcome you to try again. And you'd be it's almost magical when you see somebody who gets that confidence and just starts going.
How many people does it take? How many volunteers does it take on a house site to accomplish this big goal?
It's usually over 100 people per house.
Okay.
So it really takes a lot of people and a lot of community support to make that happen. The build schedule usually runs spring into late fall, winter. So there are build days that are scheduled with some of our regular volunteers. There are corporate groups that come in and try to request certain days. A lot of companies use it as a team building experience,
Okay.
where they'll send over a group of maybe 10 volunteers, and they get to spend the day together.
And they
learning
might
a new
learn
skill.
something about their company.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and the people that work for their company that they never knew before.
Right, because they're
Yes.
working outside of their normal four walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always fun to go to the dedication. It's a big party when we turn over the keys to the homeowner. And what I always love is you can tell who worked on the home because they immediately run for the area that they worked on and they check it out.
And they're like, hey, I worked here, or I
Yes.
worked there.
I did that closet wall. I did that. I painted here.
And they feel proud.
You earned it.
And are a lot of the families really thankful that, you know, after it's all done, after it's all said and done, it's like, what more can we do for you? What more do we owe you? You know, because it's like, because you give them this. I mean, you don't give it to them because they still pay a mortgage and stuff. But they're like, what can we do more for you? Because I'm sure they want to do more. You know.
Many families see it as a great blessing, and they want to give back, and some families even help on other build sites. So if there's another family that's building a home and they want to give back, they're welcome to volunteer and help support the organization in that way.
And there's been a lot of national research done that shows that in so many areas it helps. Health improves. Why? Well, the environment of the house is much better. You're not going to have mold. You're not going to have, dust, allergies as much. But we're finding that just owning something, it takes so much stress off of your life that health improves. We find that education achievement improves. A lot of families have to move around a lot.
Yes.
It gives you home, a place that you can keep going back to. And the other thing is these homes rise in value as the families pay them off. They own the home. I'm proud that we built 38 homes, but 15 of the people have paid off the mortgage or years later sold the home to somebody else because it was their home.
I think it said on the website one third of Oshkosh people pay a lot of money for their rent, and there's a lot of people that need low income housing. We can never have enough housing in Oshkosh.
Right.
Yes, there was a conference call this morning, national one for Habitat. Housing is becoming a crisis. We are lucky in the Midwest that it's better than most, but on the coast right now, many people are paying over 50% of their income for housing. And the majority of people on the coast are now paying over 30% of their income for housing. It is something where we have to address this. We have to work on it. If you don't have home, where do you even start?
So how is Habitat funded? Is it funded through government? Is it funded through private donors?
That we're lucky in Oshkosh because we have the Habitat Restore on the frontage road. About 60% of all of our funding comes from sales of donated goods to that
Okay.
store.
Okay.
About 30% of our money is now coming from straight donations to Habitat. Government does support us, especially in down payment assistance.
Okay.
And the last 10% of our funding is coming from the homeowners paying back to the program.
Now, I'm not a political show, and I don't promote political views. But what more can government do to help the home crisis that we suffer for as a nation, not just at Oshkosh, but as a nation?
Well, I think we can act globally and we can act locally. I mean, Habitat was meeting in Washington today. They ran a national press conference. But I was listening, and I'm not sure in all the areas. There's so many facets of housing. But I can say locally what we can do. Locally, we can get involved.
Okay.
And the city has become a great partner.
Yeah.
Liz is working with the Rock the Block program.
We have like 50 seconds left, so.
Yeah, if you want to take it, Liz, to finish it.
Well, I think it just takes the whole community to kind of rally around the needs of the families and individuals in our community and speak up for what people need. And become aware of the resources that are here and all of the great opportunities that are here in Oshkosh, and call Habitat if you have questions about housing. If we can't help, we'll try to point people in the right direction.
All right, Liz and Tom, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Miss.
for having us.
Thanks.
Again, this is Edward Caston for Making It Happen.